There was a post that was made on the Steam community forums, somebody requesting that they add PvP servers for the launch. This is not any new conversation in New World. It's been requested basically as long as I can think about the game, at least until they moved away from being a PvP open world sandbox game.
They are not going to have PvP servers at launch, and it's because they don't want to develop two slightly different versions of the game.
I love the PvP in the game, and it's something that I would love for them to focus more on. But this whole idea for me of so many people wanting a separate PvP server from the rest of the game just doesn't, I don't know, boys, it doesn't sit well with me. I mean, he explains why it doesn't work there, but I think what people want is they want to make sure that everyone is toggled on PvP the whole time. So for me personally, I wouldn't mind if it was constantly toggled on, but the idea that let's take it to the extreme, right? My grandma plays New World. She doesn't want to fight the whole time. She just wants to go out logging and fishing. If she is constantly forced to PvP flag, they're not going to get anywhere. And long story short, she's probably going to quit the game.
New World has been going through controversy for quite some time on what to do with its PvP mechanics. This is partly due to the fact that the game started out as a PvP focused MMO and then slowly shifted to a more PvE focused one, adding dungeons and other staples of the PvE genre. New World is now not only PvP focused but also PvE focused as well. Both are important parts of the game, and neither should be treated as greater or lesser than the other, regardless of how the game started out. My goal in this video is to convince you that the current form of open world PvP in New World is not sustainable and will eventually cease to exist entirely. If you think that to be an issue, you should hear what I have to say and take what I say into consideration, no matter which side of the argument you find yourself falling under. So, what is a PvP server? A PvP server, in New World's case, is very simple. It is created by simply turning off the ability to unflag, either after joining a faction or reaching a certain level which the developer deems fit. This essentially forces every single player on said server to be obligated to PvP at any time and all the time. There doesn't have to be a full loot system or any other changed or added mechanics. Just mandatory flagging is all that it takes to create a PvP server in New World. Now, why do people want PvP servers? Why would people want to subject themselves to constant unavoidable PvP when such a thing is clearly a large hindrance to progression, which is the point of an RPG? After all, New World was originally a forced flag PvP game where every server was essentially a PvP server. And that failed miserably to the point where it was changed to what it is today. Well, the reason people want PvP servers is just as simple as the concept. At its core, the people who want PvP servers simply want open world PvP to be something that you are punished for avoiding, either through missing out on buffs or loot chance or anything substantial really. This is already present in the game as you receive a 5% experience bonus for flagging. Unfortunately, this is not nearly enough incentive to encourage flagging, especially in a game like New World where most of your XP is going to come from quests rather than grinding. Even if the flag EXP bonus applied to your quests, almost all quest turn-ins are located in towns or safe havens, which means one could just flag up in towns or safe havens to receive the XP bonus and then turn it off when leaving. What's more is, in comparison to many other MMOs, New World's current level cap is rather easily attainable. So even if this EXP bonus was boosted to 100%, it still would not encourage flagging in the long term, because once a player levels to the cap of 60, there would be absolutely no reason to flag, at least until the level cap is raised. The only other incentive to flag is the XP and weapon XP gained for killing players, which are both also short-term incentives. The only reasons the game gives the player to flag at this time are both objectively insignificant and short-term, which will lead to the open world PvP being rare to non-existent. The immediate counter-argument I see people make to this universally agreed upon fact that flagging has no real incentive is that PvP should not require incentive. If you like PvP so much, you should do it just for fun. You shouldn't need any incentive. This argument is flawed to the core for several reasons. Firstly, it's an extremely hypocritical statement. If the argument is that PvP does not require incentive because the only incentive should be fun, then the argument for PvE should be the same. Why do dungeons and other late game PvE content provide the player with the best gear then? By this logic, dungeons and PvE should offer no loot to the player. You should be running these dungeons for fun, right? See how illogical that is? RPGs are all about progression. That is the driving force of an RPG, and any player who takes an RPG seriously wants to progress his or her player as quickly and efficiently as possible. So to say that an incentive which helps with progression is required for PvE and not required for PvP is simply unfair. Both PvE and PvP should both provide meaningful progression for the player in a way that is fair and reasonable. The problem is, people who do not want to flag also do not want to feel like they are forced to do so in order to progress efficiently. And at the same time, the people who want to flag do not want to feel like they are putting themselves at a disadvantage for doing so. So if the flagging system doesn't provide necessary incentives, people will stop flagging. If it does provide the necessary incentive, people will not wish to flag at all and will stop playing. The only way to please both sides is to provide an incentive that is large enough to greatly encourage flagging in the long term, while at the same time being small enough to not make those who opt out of flagging feel like they are at a huge disadvantage. As you can imagine, finding this balance is incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible. I've been thinking of a way to do this for weeks and I just couldn't come up with a solid answer myself. Maybe one day, after extensive research and testing, finding the balance between the two could be done, but for now, this balance has certainly not been found. So what should Amazon Game Studios do? Just leave things as they are, essentially turning their backs on the players who supported their project from its humble and uncertain beginnings? Let open world PvP live on for a few weeks, maybe a month, and then fizzle out as people inevitably lose the will to flag up? Why? Why would you not want both sides to be happy if there was an easy way to make it so? PvP servers would give those who want more incentive to PvP a perfect place to play with those who are like-minded, while not taking anything away from the game, nor the players who do not wish to partake in it. It will force every player who decided to join the server to always be on an equal playing field with every other player who decided to join the server, which removes the need for any further incentives. It would also not require any development or post-launch maintenance that any of the other servers are not receiving. You could just start off with one PvP server per region and see how it goes. If the server is a success, you could perhaps make a few more depending on the amount of demand for that server. In the worst case scenario, if the server is too underpopulated and a failure, you could just merge it with a regular server and be done with it, proving once and for all that people do not want a PvP server. That's it. With such a small risk being taken, there is a remarkably high opportunity for success. I can't possibly see how someone, even someone who does not wish to partake in a PvP server, could take issue with something like this. And in my opinion, it is extremely selfish if they do. Even the popular counter-argument of PvP servers, being, I don't want the player base to be split, is selfish. If it hypothetically turned out that 50% of the player base liked to play PvP servers, don't you think that the fact that they have the opportunity to enjoy the game in the way that they would prefer is more important than you forcing everyone to enjoy it in the way that you do? I'm just not sure why people are so against other people having fun at no cost to themselves personally. I'm also not sure why open world PvP is seen as such a negative to many MMO players. I understand that an RPG is about progression, and PvP may hinder that from time to time, but an MMO is about social interactions. PvP is one of the most fun forms of social interactions in gaming. That's why the most popular games of the last decade and of all time have had an intense focus on PvP. It's just what a lot of people enjoy. Many MMOs have also supported PvP servers, and a lot of the time they worked out very well. There is a huge market for both PvP and PvE gameplay, and New World could easily capitalize on both by adding PvP servers. Simply just adding this option to New World would essentially double its demographic without changing or subtracting anything, and it will please many of the game's most loyal and devout supporters while keeping the newcomers satisfied. I just can't find one single logical argument as to why PvP servers should not exist, especially in New World. If you can, leave a comment. I'd love to discuss it with you. If you can't, then that means that this video was a success.